Texas. I grew up and lived in Northbrook, Illinois. In case you're not familiar with the place, Northbrook,
which is a suburb of Chicago. Excellent.
about 25 miles away from the city. If you've watched any movies from the past 40 years, you'll probably know Northbrook as Shermer, Illinois.
It's in a small town called Shermer in Illinois, where all the honeys are top shelf, but all the dudes are whiny pussies.
From a lot of John Hughes movies. You probably got the impression that the village is populated by upper-class, snooty, professional types. Well, that's because it is. But was it always that way? And will it always be that way? Well, I'm about to find out. How do I do that? By going there, of course. I'll give you a brief rundown of Northbrook's history, but I won't go too deep. Frankly, that information is all over the internet, or Northbrook Library if you're interested. Basically, Northbrook was settled in 1837 as Northfield at the corner of what is now Sanders and Dundee Roads. When I was in school, we were taught that this settlement was the beginning of Northbrook. I tried searching for this fact, and I couldn't find a shred of info to suggest it was true. Multiple sources, including the village's official website, suggest the first settlement was closer to present-day downtown. If you know, leave a comment. Anyhow, back to the video. In 1901, it was incorporated as Shermerville, but due to the village's reputation as a rough and tumble, heavy drink and saloon town, it received a rebranding in 1923 as the Northbrook we know today. There. So I'm here with Judy Hughes of the Northbrook Historical Society. Judy, can you tell us a little bit about what you do for the society and your background with the village?
Well, I've been with the society since 1989, when we started a children's program, inviting the children of Northbrook to come in support of the curriculum, and now the state curriculum, that they need to learn about their community. And so we set up a program, and I was one of the docents for that program. The program is still going today. Then in 1995, I was elected to the board, or appointed to the board at that point, to fill an unexpired term. And then in 1999, I became president, and I'm still there. So what we do, our goal is to tell the history of our community, to share it with people, both the past and the present, because many people don't think of history as what happened yesterday.
Right.
And somewhere down the line, that's going to be in the history books.
So what effect did Prohibition have on Northbrook?
Well, Prohibition was really partially the impetus for changing the name, because we were a very small community and people from the city would come out on the weekends. At that time, all over, people in the summertime wanted to get out of their houses and into the fresh air. So they slept in the parks. And people would come out here on the train, and there were with 5 taverns and the big village green that was downtown, and where our museum was, Bartlemy's Northfield Inn. They had a big picnic ground as well. So people come out here for picnics and for other things like that. And so But we talked about eBay just a minute ago. On eBay, I found 2 postcards, and the postcards basically say, this isn't much of a town. I came here for a picnic,
Yeah.
and because we knew it didn't have any paved streets, it had dirt roads.
It was a backwater, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it was a normal rural community at that time. We think of it differently today. Well, gosh, they're so far behind, but that was normal during that time. And so we got the proof in 2 postcards that this person wrote to someone. And you never know where you're going to find the proof of the oral story, but most oral stories have a hint of truth in it. So anyway, with Prohibition closing the taverns, and there were 5 of them in the downtown, including Bartlemy's, the people from out of town weren't coming into town and having parties and drinking too much in the taverns and sleeping in the village green anymore. And so people in the village saw it as a way to change the image of the town. And Northbrook Civic Foundation now, but at that time it was a Schermerville organization that began way back in the early 1900s, continued all the way through to today, with different names. They had a contest asking if people wanted to change the name and to give them names as suggestions, and they gathered some names, and Northbrook was the winning name. So Prohibition pretty much changed the whole town.
Yeah.
Anybody that was selling liquor reinvented themselves. One of them became a pool room that sold chocolates. And others, they just reinvented themselves to stay in business.
You have to, or else you sink or swim.
Right. And during the Depression, it was the farmers and all the lines of credit people gave to each other in town that helped our community go on. And then with Pelican coming in, that helped employ some people.
Yeah, the story that I was always told in school was that Northbrook became Northbrook because Schermerville developed a reputation of being a rowdy, like a tough drinking town, and people out of control. So they decided to change the name to escape that.
That's part of it. But an article that was printed with an interview from the man who was president of the town mentioned that there were new people moving into town because there were some houses that were built before the Depression, and they were embarrassed when they went downtown to buy. This one woman in particular was embarrassed that her parcels were going to be shipped to Schermerville, and so she's the one that got Civic to do it because it had the reputation. Yeah. And it wasn't the residents. A tavern back then was pretty much where people gathered to talk and to learn what was going on and to have a game of checkers or a game of chess, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not like today where you have infinitely more options to socialize with other people, especially online. They didn't have that back then.
No, and particularly being a farming community, that was one place the farmers could come in and maybe share a drink with their neighbors and their friends and just talk about their crops and what was growing well for them. It was their way of getting a community together to learn about what was going on. So, and as I said, the Brickyard's closed, and that had nothing to do with Prohibition, but we did a video for the centennial as well. And one of the ladies in the video, they were 2 sisters who lived above the second floor of their dad's grocery store and hardware store. And she related the story of waking up in the morning and her dad said, "Well, girls, you don't live in Schermerville anymore."
Changes overnight.
I don't live in Schermerville. Where do I live? So it was a big change for everybody. And it passed, the name change passed by, there was one of the board members who voted no, and only one.
Yeah. When did Northbrook Days start, and how did it differ from the modern festival?
Well, actually, Northbrook Days started through Civic as a celebration of our new town. And the first Northbrook Days was August 29th, 1925. But it had another component that there were no rides. The St. Peter Church kitchen band played. They had a dance floor, and another orchestra band came in and played, and people danced on the dance floor. Some of the old stories talk about the dance floor then being dismantled and stored in somebody's barn until they needed it the following year.
Mhm.
But the other component that year was Ed Landwehr, who also had submitted the winning name for Northbrook, was a rural postmaster here. And he had joined the state of Illinois' Good Roads Committee to build paved roads.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you have ever seen the photo of all of the cars, bumper to bumper, going down Waukegan Road.
I don't believe I have.
Well, that was the celebration. And so not only was it Northbrook Days, it was the celebration for the good roads, because Northbrook had more paved roads per capita than any other city in the state. And there were several thousand cars that came to ride that are on the new paved roads.
Yeah, people don't realize that roads back then weren't all paved,
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
and it was somewhat of a luxury. And when you have something as new as that, you want to see for yourself, and thus the traffic jam.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and that's the way it differs, and it stayed that way for many years. And then it became a carnival where there weren't rides as such. I mean, they had things like How Strong Are You? And you had to swing a big club at a thing to push a bell, push something up to the top to ring the bell, and those
Right.
kinds of things. And it was just a fun way for the community to get together and
Right.
have the evening dance. And then they started when the carnivals started traveling around. They would have some rides, but they were very, like when we first moved here, there was a Ferris wheel. There was a Ferris wheel with enclosed cars
Mhm.
that you could get to go up and down, turn over if you wanted to by shaking it. There was a tilt-a-whirl. There was little children's trains, a merry-go-round, and that was it.
Yeah, not as sophisticated as the rides today, for
It's
sure.
it's very different than what you remember from
Yeah.
your days.
So when did Northbrook become an affluent town?
Well, that depends on your definition of affluent. I think when the larger houses began building here, and particularly more so when those newer, larger houses and all of the many of the smaller houses were getting torn down for huge, huge buildings. I live on a street with 16 houses. When they were built in 54, they sold for 18,000 up to 24,000. And now I've got four houses on the street that when they first sold were $1.5 million.
And $1 million plus homes are not uncommon in Northbrook at all.
Not uncommon at all.
Yeah. And there must have been something to attract all of the professionals, higher earners to the village, or was it a case of if you build it, they will come?
No, because most of these, some of them were built for people. There are a few spec houses. Mostly it's the excellent schools, a wonderful park district,
Hmm.
an incredible library. And if you have those amenities, people will want to live in your town
And Northbrook has those in spades.
in spades. It doesn't matter which school district you attend. They are all, it's there for everybody, no matter what size house you live in.
Right. And this is different than a smaller village like Kenilworth that had old money almost from the beginning.
Kenilworth had old money from the beginning. It was a planned development. Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah.
And it's very different. Well, I don't know if you'll get to it, but it's very different than the towns that had no boundaries and just large farms and could continue. There weren't natural resources that split them from expanding. Like I'm thinking of Northbrook expanding into where Wheeling began, because there's the river and the forest preserve there now.
Yeah.
So you don't build in a forest preserve.
No, it's a natural boundary.
It's a natural boundary. And then the toll road went in. So you can't build because the other side of the toll roads, the forest preserve. So it's a natural boundary. And Glenview was already established to our on Willow Road in parts like the Glenview Naval Air Station was. And so you have some boundaries, and people talk about, why isn't our downtown like Highland Parks, or why isn't our downtown better? Well, think of the natural and man-made boundaries that have formed that are here that control the space of our downtown with the railroad and the river. And the rest of it was farmland that people didn't want to give up. They were still farming their land.
And this is why Northbrook doesn't have too much space to expand.
Exactly. And right now we are in, which is why the McMansions are here. I want to come because I want my kids to get this schooling. And the park district has all these offerings and the parks all through town, but I can't, there's no vacant land for sale. So I'll buy a house, another house, and I'll tear it down and make the house I want. So that's how it happens.
That's how the village became how it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a reputation of being an upper class, very affluent place. Some would even say a bit snobby.
Some people
Yeah.
have that attitude. I generally, I don't think of snobby. I think there are some people in any community that think they're entitled. And that's the way I look at it. But it's not just North. I mean, I see it in other towns when I visit, and I see it other places. So it's not just specific to Northbrook.
Do you think Northbrook Days will ever move back to the Village Green? I know it's been taking place in the train station parking lot over the past year or so.
Yeah, it's been there 2 years.
2 years.
I don't think it'll ever move to the Village Green. Mostly because, instead of $2,000 or $3,000, 3,000 pounds of equipment, we're talking 40,000 for each ride, 40,000 pounds for each ride.
Yeah.
And you've got the tree canopy. And I mean, they've had to put at least one of their rides out into the parking lot. I don't think it'll ever move back downtown. And from what I know, what I've been told from some of the civic people, they love where they are now. They're getting as many people. It's a friendly place. We've run the civic, the Sunset Popcorn Wagon at Northbrook Days since they've been doing it off site. And there's a whole different community vibe to it. And it's not a bad vibe, where people who remember the old nostalgic miss the old nostalgic.
Yeah. Every time I went to Northbrook Days, I remember just going, in Village Green. It's, a big sprawling park, and, you go around all the trees and everything's laid out, just to go around the baseball field or the trees.
But each time, each year now they use a different carnival operator now, because the one that they'd used for years only goes to state fairs now. But each year the rides that they were offered got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mhm.
So they were running out of space too to put things. And they have found that they do well in the new place. So they haven't lost the need for why they have Northbrook Days in the first place, which is to raise funding to give scholarships to kids and help organizations. Civic has been very generous over the years to the Historical Society in grants. They gave us a big grant to begin the Historical Society.
So you don't think it'll ever go back?
No.
So I just spoke to Judy Hughes of the Northbrook Historical Society, and I want to thank her for taking time out of her day to sit down with me and talk about the history of the village and the future of the village. So Judy, if people are still interested in Northbrook, where can they go?
There are several places. We have a Facebook page, Northbrook History Museum. And we have a website, www.northbrookhistory.org. And also northbrookvoices.org is where we have 180 interviews with people who came to Northbrook. Everybody has a story, a Northbrook story about what it was like when they lived here, which is different than, and there's some really interesting videos on there, both from regular citizens, people whose family have lived here for generations, who tell old family stories, to village trustees, village managers on there. And you learn a lot about your town when you listen to somebody else's story.
That's definitely the case today when I was talking with you. And can people visit the Historical Society?
Yeah, as I said in the beginning, we're all volunteer. The museum is open on Sundays from 2 to 4, except on national holidays. Our archives and offices are open on Thursdays from 10 to 2. That's where we have all of our photographs, and we have bound volumes of the Northbrook Star for not all the years, but for quite a few of the years. Or by emailing us at northbrookhistory@gmail.com, or calling the museum, the society's number, 847-498-3404, and leaving a message, and we'll arrange for an appointment if you can't come during hours we're staffed.
Well, sounds good. Well, I think people should take more of an interest in the communities they live in. And every community has somebody you can talk to, somebody you can ask. Northbrook has Judy.
And many people. It's not just me.
Not just you, of course.
I happen to be the spokesperson today.
But thank you for talking with me. I know I took quite a bit out of your day for this, but I appreciate it very much.
Okay, not a problem.
Hey guys, I got some more videos coming soon, so don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks.